Hello everyone, this is Grant from FluxTrade. Today I wanted to take some time and go through the different strategy settings that we have for the three strategies on my website. So let's take a look here. So we actually have three different strategies available. We have Cerberus, Hydra, and Kraken. Cerberus is the opening range breakout strategy that I have. Hydra is Renko patterns, and we can go more into detail about what those patterns are. And then Kraken is the compression breakout. So heading back to the strategy analyzer, the first thing I want to do is actually talk about the shared settings that each strategy has. So for the first one, we have an AI filter. And so the way this works is basically this is another vote on whether the trade looks good. And this comes from an LLM. So if you want to use any of these, we actually have OpenAI, Anthropic, and Ollama. OpenAI requires a prepaid credit setup on OpenAI platform. So that is OpenAI platform. You would have to create an account here if you don't have one. And then you would log in, get an API key, and you would prepay on this. And then the same with Anthropic. So Anthropic API. It's platform.cloud.com. I'll leave the links for these in the description. Same thing here. You would create an account, log in, create an API key, and so then you would put the API keys in here. So these are, like I said, they're prepaid. You would have to add credits like $5 or $10 at a time. The thing about this is I just use the kind of the lowest models. I don't think there's any difference going bigger in my back testing, and it's with OpenAI Luna, which is one of their smaller ones. That's their newest. It's really like about 8/10 of a penny per call. So I would do this last. I would use the other filters before I do this. For instance, we have the market regime filter. I like to do that one first. We have filters here as well. So there's a choppiness index filter, RSI filter, EMA filter. Those are just different indicator filters. There's momentum as well. So I would do the market regime filter first, which shows it will trade only an uptrend high volume, uptrend low volume, sideways high volume, sideways low volume, downtrend high volume, and downtrend low volume. There's also in this section a high impact events filter. So that will go between a minimum and maximum high impact events for the US dollar on that given day. So that's also an interesting filter to use. And then the AI filter, the way it works is between 0 and 1, it gives you basically a probability of this trade being profitable. So if you want 50% profitability or 50% likelihood to be profitable, you would use 0.5. You can also do Ollama, which gives you access to do custom Ollama models. You can put a custom model in here. You can also use a custom model for OpenAI and Anthropic, which will override the model that you have chosen here. Now, you can set your API keys in here, or you can use environment API keys. You can see that the names of the API keys there, which is Windows, let's see. If I come into here and say environment variables, here we go, edit the system environment variables, and then we go here, and then you would add your keys in there. I'm just going to blur this out because it has my API keys. So you would add them in the system variables or the user variables. Another thing to note about the AI filter is you cannot have this enabled and do an optimization on any of these strategies because it makes a network call and it absolutely will fail to resolve if you're optimizing. So what I would do is optimize without it, and then you can come into the back test and turn it on and run it and see if it improves your results or not. But again, use this as kind of a last result because it does cost money every time you make a call, and you kind of want to use it as a final vote for whether or not to take that trade. One other note as I'm editing, you actually definitely should use the prediction cache if you're going to use the AI filter, because that way it creates a file in your system So if we come here to app data, local NinjaTrader, we have the predictions cache JSON file, and that way it prevents you from making additional calls for the same. It's basically like a fingerprint of a trade. It has like the minute and second of that trade, and it will store it for you. So actually that way, if you're using the AI filter, it'll actually speed up. It'll read from the file for that moment or that trade, as opposed to making a fresh network call. So definitely use that. And then, if you have a trade on the same bar, it'll actually just read it from the file. What other things do we have here? Quick exit it allows you to exit after so many bars. I don't use this one very often, but it is an option. And you have a quick exit only on profit as well. So say if you had this enabled and you want to exit after 5 bars regardless, you exit after 5 bars, and that's based on your data series as well. So in this case, we're using a 7-minute bar. That's what I found to be the best for this. This is Cerberus, by the way. Then we have risk, which is shared between them. So there's a profit target and ticks. There's a stop loss and ticks. There's a max stop distance if you're using the structural stop. A structural stop is a computed stop, which will override your stop loss here. And there's a structural target, which is computed and will override your profit target and ticks. There's a custom trail, which has a distance and an activation ticks. So when that activates. So that's a nice way to, save some drawdown. Then in risk management, we have a break-even profit. If you set this to 0, then this will not be activated, but it's in currency. So if I were to set this to 100, when I have $100 of profit, the stop loss will be set to break even, which is the average price. Then we have max daily profit and loss. Max daily profit is it'll turn off, disable the strategy once you hit this amount of profit or this amount of loss. You can enable those individually. And then there's end day on unrealized, which will, instead of $500 of realized profit, it will end it on $500 of unrealized profit. There's also a profit lock. This is tiered. So it attempts to lock in certain thresholds of profit for different tiers. So here's some more information on the tiered profit lock. This is available at fluxtrade.net/strategy-settings. So this tiered profit lock works by basically raising the floor as profit accumulates. So you have different thresholds and floors for those different tiers. Then we have max daily losses and max daily trades. You can stop the strategy when you reach these different amounts of losses or daily trades. Then we have trade windows. You can enable this if you want. There's a start and end hour and minute for all these strategies. And then you can enable by day as well: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There's a default quantity, which is the number of contracts. And I usually do between 20 and 40 on these templates for MNQ. I really only trade MNQ. And then finally, there's longs and shorts. So now let's take a look at the specific strategy settings for each strategy. So we have breakouts and reversals. Again, this is the opening range break strategy. You can take reversals off of the morning high or morning low, or you can take breakouts only, and I think that's the one I prefer to use. We have reversals only at inverse fair value gaps, which is that's a smart money concept that you can integrate here. There's an FVG look back and minimum size. We have a skip first potential setup because a lot of times when you're trading opening range break, you actually have a fake out on the first potential setup. And then J strategy, we will look at a little bit further in here in the strategy settings. So if we go to this, it describes that it's a 15-minute range plus 5-minute bias, pullback retest with volume rejection. And then that has a bunch of its own strategy properties here. So there's a start and end hour and minute. There's a volume look back, volume multiplier, retest zone, stop buffer, risk percent of account, and so on. So I will leave a link to this in the description as well. This gives you a nice idea about all of these. And what else? Opening range time settings. That is when you want the opening range to be defined. There are entry filters, require EMA trending, min distance from EMA, enable breakout strength, require price to be X ticks beyond the opening range high or low before entry. So this is really customizable. And I think it's a really nice opening range strategy. Next, we'll take a look at Kraken, or this is Hydra, sorry. So for Hydra, we have a bunch of different entry modes. You can see them all here. So you can pick any one of these. And then for each entry mode, you actually have settings for that given one. So ABC, there's ABC pattern. ABCD, there's ABCD pattern. Double pullback. Now, the one I trade most often on this is ABC. It's the one that's been most reliable to me. But you're welcome to backtest whatever you like on this. So these are all the separate entry mode settings here. And then we have the same things we saw with Cerberus. We have the AI filter. We have the regular filters, market range or market regime filter. There's the risk. And then we'll just take a look here at the settings page as well, because we have a defined entry mode description for each one of these. So ABC is a trend continuation. ABCD is the same thing with a measured profit target. Double pullback is ABC, double pullback. There's a pullback continuation. These are all on Renko as well. So I use Unirenko, and here is the settings for that. So it's a 7/12/31. So there's a bunch of different options here. And then we have the different settings available for each one. And then finally, we will take a look at Kraken. That is this one. So we have the same types of things here. And then we have compression look back. So this is the compression strategy. Volatility contraction to expansion. So here's the information about the compression. Compression look back, the bar range must be the narrowest of this many bars. Treat inside bar as compression. An inside bar also arms as setup. That's a toggleable option. The breakout buffer, the bar must be close to this many ticks beyond the compression extreme to trigger. And then setup expiry bars. The arm setup is abandoned if no breakout occurs within this many bars. And then I think we have all the same types of things here. We have the filters, we have the market regime filter, quick exit, risk management. This one is also run on Unirenko. And something that I will mention about this is you can test, I set the order fill resolution to high and then tick. I would not really test or analyze anything less than 10 ticks or anything more than 10 ticks. And then if you want like a really true fill kind of, if you want something more accurate, you can put it on 1 tick. I would say for doing your optimization, you would want to put it on like a 10 tick because even that will take some time. And then you can come in here and do a back test on 1 tick when you're pretty well sorted out with everything. And that will give you the most accurate, that's a very accurate, actually, resolution or fill resolution. What else? I also will do 3 months at a time for intraday strategies. I think the market will change over that, over a greater period than that. So I think 3 months is a pretty good place to set it. I do frequently create new templates as well. So I would say you want to update this maybe once a month, maybe every 2 weeks, back test and get a closer idea of what the market's actually been doing over the past week or two. So I think that's it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, or you can join the free Discord. I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. If you want to check out these strategies, they're available at fluxtrade.net. I have 3 available at the moment, and they're all they're mix and match, so you can sign up for whatever ones you see fit and test them out for yourself. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the Discord. Have a great day.